Welcome back. If you're just joining us, we have a Category 5 hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico that continues to intensify at an alarming rate.
Starting to really smack into those pilings down there and that seawall at the end of where those condos are.
Welcome back to our live coverage of Hurricane Milton. The situation here in Sarasota is starting to turn dire. At first we had, okay, we gotta go.
Without exaggeration, by far in our journeys this week covering the aftermath all the way up and down the Gulf Coast, this is the worst structural damage that we have seen and experienced with our own eyes.
With Milton, with the lower surge, we had much stronger winds. So their biggest concern is wind damage coming right in with the eye wall, the eye, a calm, and then strong winds in the back end as well. So we had everything here in Siesta Key. 2 hurricanes, an eye, and now a slow process for recovery.
All right, guys, we are back with another episode of Sarasota Speaks. This one is going to look a little bit different. You can see we've got a different cast of characters today, multiple guests, some great guests. We've got current Commissioner Erik Arroyo, Melissa Bordes, right? Did I say that right?
Yes.
From Capo, Pazzo, and Chief Troche. How you doing, Chief?
How you doing, brother?
Remember, I'm not Trey. I'm not Trey.
Brad.
He called me Trey.
Trey.
Trey is not joining us today. He's obviously on a roof. So this is really more of a post-hurricane type roundtable discussion. But before we get into that, wanted to thank our sponsors. So first of all, Capo Pazzo, you can see they delivered us the pizza of the month. So check that out. Tweeds, big shout out to them. Big shout out to Food and Beer. I know Felipe was there. I saw a bunch of people, but they were one of the first restaurants open after the storm, and that place was packed. The Rosemary Food and Beer was just, standing room only, basically. So
limited menu, but still a great menu as always.
And they ran out of food at 9 o'clock, but a lot of people there after the storm, just kind of, I guess debriefing, right? Like just decompressing from everything that happened. So we've got some of the people that were on the front lines and want to talk about that. And Tominator Law. Yes. Can't forget Tominator Law. Love you, Tom. Would never forget you.
Especially in these times when a lot of folks are going to be filing insurance claims. Tominator specializes in that, so
absolutely.
I want to leave him out.
Absolutely. Big shout out to Tom. Good catch, Erik. But wanted to lead in with Melissa. You guys own a small business here locally. Obviously, a lot of small businesses kind of being the heartbeat of our community affected. And I understand you guys delivered some pizzas out to Siesta Key and did some,
yes,
kind of relief type of efforts. So tell us about that.
Right. So Capo Pazzo is located very close to Siesta Key. We had driven out there and saw the devastation. We couldn't believe it. It was just absolutely horrible just seeing everybody's belongings, on the street. We wanted to do whatever we could to help the community. So we partnered, the first time we delivered pizzas, we partnered with Porter Lake Shades, and they donated pizzas to us they donated to us and we delivered them. And then the second time we partnered up with Bay Breeze Bungalow, which is a really cute bungalow downtown Sarasota, and they also donated pizzas, and we went out, we delivered them. The community was so grateful. It was just wonderful to see, everyone coming together and to provide much needed food for people.
Yeah, I was actually just talking to somebody on the way back here that was kind of like, talking about trying to get back to normal, right? And I know that you guys trying to get back to normal, you didn't have power, you had the cart set up out front.
Yeah.
We got a couple of 12-inch pizzas. So, and that's really, huge blessing just to have the opportunity to try to get back to normal. But we've also got some of the folks that were on kind of the front lines with this. I saw some interviews with you, not as many interviews I didn't see with you, but I definitely know that you're out there doing your thing. So tell me about kind of the efforts leading up to the storm and, where we're at today.
So I'd just like to say thank you to people like Melissa for stepping up, because really the great thing about the city of Sarasota and Sarasota County in general is we all step up with each other, and we can't all do it, right? We have to collaborate. Everybody has to really bring their strengths to the table, and to have food really makes people feel a lot better. So thank you for doing what you do. So for us, we went into preparation stage, and obviously we're not in California where earthquakes come unbeknownst. We knew this thing was coming. First we had Debbie, and Debbie kicked our butt with a lot of rain. City of Sarasota police officers did over 500 rescues during Debbie. So a lot of people were not prepared. So then we had Helene. We did about 3 rescues at that point. We helped some people that were running out of oxygen that no one could get to. So our emergency response teams went out there and made their way. And then fortunately during this one, everybody heeded the warnings, and we did 0 rescues. So kudos to the city of Sarasota, people in this area, for getting out of those level A, B, and C areas. And for us, we're able to continuously prepare, mitigate any issues on the front end, so that when we really did hit with this one, we were ready to take action.
Yeah, and I'm not going to make light of the comment that Erik made on the news, but I saw some posts, with the permanent marker on the forearm. It's a real thing. Like, we were really trying to get people out of those evacuation zones, and you commented on that. So it's crazy to hear also that we did 0 rescues, and that's the city. I'm sure there's definitely some rescues in the county, but that is fortunate to hear, at least.
Where did the mayor of Tampa made that same comment about the arm? Are you sure?
It wasn't the same.
She won up me.
All right. Well,
she said if you don't leave, you will die.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if hyperbolic statement sometimes.
Well, that gets people's attention, so that's important,
not at the
right?
time. She wasn't doing it to be hyperbolic. She was doing it because we genuinely thought we were going to get hit with like the biggest hurricane we've ever been hit with.
Yeah.
And but if it saved one life, it would have been worth it.
Right. Yeah, and I applaud you for that comment. But what are you seeing out there? What were you doing to kind of prepare for the storm, or weathering the storm, and where we're at now?
I was out going to family members' houses and boarding up their house. I was taking calls from the community, not as much as our staff, not as much as the police department and everybody out there. I was taking care of my family and neighbors for the most part, and being a kind of a conduit with the resources they needed, the government. But after this hurricane left, it's like 2:30 in the morning. You already saw our public works department out on the streets. You saw our police department. It was like right after we began the recovery efforts. And it's not going to be normally these hurricanes are like a couple weeks you're fully back to normal. This is going to be like months long process.
Have either of you guys heard any numbers as far as maybe just the city and the amount of damage financially? Have we heard any like official numbers or anything like that?
I've heard. I don't know about the city. I've heard trillions. Just
in the state.
Yeah. In the state.
Yeah.
You could easily say millions in the city of Sarasota. Yeah. I can tell you just in talks with our other directors, we're in the millions in Park and Rec and trying to bring Parks and Rec back. I don't know if you saw the interview that we did, and we brought in Rick Scott. Senator Rick Scott came to town, and Congressman Greg Stubbe. We were able to take them on our boat, and then we went out to show them all the damage. Salty Dog looks like an empty garage right now. It's heartbreaking. If you look at the boatyard that's right next to there, it looked like an explosion went off. Yeah. And then when we went on land, we had our community relations unit trucks there waiting for us, and we were able to drive through St. Armand's. And it's heartbreaking to go through there. The sand, the water, the sewage, the business owners are just, you can see how upset they are with everything that's going on. It got as high as 4 feet. During Helene, and then Milton, I'd say it was about 2.5 feet. But again, they were starting to get back on their feet a little bit, and they had to stop everything in order for this hurricane to bypass them. And then we were able to drive them through Marina Jacks, and then we did our press conference there. But it's really important to bring in those heavy hitters in the federal government so they understand what's going on, because until they see it, smell it, and essentially taste it, then they don't have a good feel for it, and they really got a good taste of it that day.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I brought my kids through St. Armand's a couple of days after it all, just to kind of show them. Even Debbie, before that, we were in Laurel Lakes, so right across the street is that Laurel Meadows neighborhood that not even in a flood zone. She lives nearby too, not even a flood zone, and we brought the kids over there, donated supplies, and it's. Not that Greg Stubbe and these guys are kids, but until you see it, right? Same thing with my kids. Like they're in the storm like it's a great time. They get to stay home from school. The power's out. They're 5 and 3. So, to bring them there and visualize, like there was fish on the ground. Why does it smell? Well, because look, all these fish had flooded, and all of these people, all of this furniture, all of these belongings. Same thing with St. Armand's. As soon as we pointed out where the water line was on the wall, my son who's 5 is like, that's like over my head. And I'm like, literally, like it's over your head.
No, it's definitely more real when you can see it, touch it, and feel it in the space. Let's stay on St. Armand's for a second, though, because I think that is something that we haven't talked about enough. Those business owners there, some friends of ours like John Horn over at Cafe L'Europe, I mean, they got hit really bad with Helene. Like you said, it was, 6 feet of water in there. And then many of them, they want to get back to business, so they already had started purchasing the equipment and doing the clean outs, and then a week later we get hit with this. So that's just devastating and demoralizing.
It is, and it's important for them to see us on the circle, right? Like our city workers are out there; they're working 24/7, 7 days a week. There's people that in their job description it says to do A, B, and C, and they're out there sweeping. They're out there helping. We had our financial director out there helping cleaning the garage. This is an all hands on deck. And I walked out there just the other day, and I was fortunate to run into a lot of business owners, Daiquiri Deck out there and the Irish Pub, and we got to talking, and they are so relieved just to see me out there walking because they know we care and that we're trying to get them back on their feet as soon as possible. So they really do need our support, and then they'll need our support once they're back up and running. People need to go out there and support them because that's an amazing area. People come here from all over the world to go to all over the world, not the country, all over the world to go to St. Armand's, and that's a big part of what brings people here into our city and drives our economy. So it's important that we start really giving back once they're up and running.
The thing is also disasters of this scope that you're talking about, sometimes we don't recover, right? Yep. And sometimes that actually reshapes cities. I mean, if you look at what happened in Naples, from what I'm told, that 5th Street area, that's all new and nice, used to not be such a great area, but they had a couple storms come through, and the people there weren't able to recover, so new developers came in. I don't think we'll have that issue in St. Armand's, but it's interesting to think about the impact these storms can really have.
100%. And change is, you nailed it right on the head. And I think as business owners recover this time, they really need to rethink water mitigation, right? Water mitigation tactics. The old days of, hey, we're going to throw sandbags, 1.5 feet of sandbags up, those days are over. You have to start looking at what Tampa General has. They have an aqua wall. And there's other companies that are just like that. They're not as expensive. You have to start looking at, hey, maybe I build the interior of my restaurant like a shower, right? With that dry rock that you put on the walls, 4 to 6 feet high.
That's crazy.
Maybe we start thinking about that as a city, about code, and we start saying, hey, tile floors now, no more wood floors, and drains, because we have to assume that this is going to happen time and time and time again in the future. So let's start building for it. Right?
You know who does it like that? Cancun does it like that.
Perfect.
Because look at every storm that hits us usually hits them. Right. And their whole economy is tourism. They're not like us. Their whole economy is tourism. And they manage to dry out every time. So, but one other thing that I think is not being talked about enough is, we got lucky. This was not the hit. The direct hit, ironically, is what saved us. Because had this thing hit on the northern track like they thought it was going to, St. Armand's would have had 10 feet of water. Right? Because we would have been on that south dirty side of the storm. So it's kind of ironic that we got our first direct hit in Sarasota in 100 years, but that was actually our saving grace.
Right. I saw a lot about the fact that it was weakening, that it weakened and sped up being a big factor as well, because as it weakened and it sped up, it made landfall earlier, which was before high tide, and high tide was at I think 1 a.m., and it made landfall, 9?
I think it was 8:30, 9 o'clock.
And so because it didn't hit right when high tide hit, that was probably a little helpful too.
That saved us.
All of these things, I mean, for me, as lifelong Floridian, like some of you guys know are, but I put every shutter up in my house. Some of those shutters have never been up, right? Not for Ian, not for anything. I normally put the sliding glass doors, maybe a big window in the front, a couple of the big windows on the side. Been telling myself since Ian, I'm going to get a whole house generator. Obviously never got it. But I was able to scrounge up a couple of generators the day before. And then it was as soon as I had my shutters up, as soon as I had my my generators in place, water, my family was all coming over to stay with us, I'm like, it immediately started to turn the focus towards what can I do to help when this thing's over? What can I do to prepare? Like, should I go buy some chainsaws right now? Should I go, like, how bad is this going to be? And I'm not one that's normally, like, you know, concerned, right? So it definitely had the potential to be worse. And I know that's hard. It's hard to even say, because I personally know some people that were impacted in a major way because they had just started rebuild, and even a couple of feet of flooding after they just rebuilt it is still very frustrating and very difficult, and obviously financially challenging. So, yeah, I think that's a great point that we were somewhat fortunate, and it could have been worse. Was there any? So there was no rescues. There was no deaths. No.
Fortunately, we didn't have to do any rescues. I know I had my Jim Cantor app up, because we know that wherever Jim Cantor shows up, it's going to be bad. He was kind of hanging out in Tampa. So I always keep an eye where he goes, because he wants to be in the thick of it. But to your point, because high tide, it was low tide, we did get hit with the eye of the storm, but then we got that brief break with the eye itself, and then you heard nothing but echoes in the area, and people kind of thought it was over, but we knew round two was on its way, and it hit harder than the front end.
Yeah. No, I mean, that was the consensus for a lot of the people I talked to as well. I was during that time, I was outside because my neighbors, I saw flashlights back there, and I thought in my head that they thought it might be over, right? Like, and I knew it was the eye, and I'm assuming they knew, but just making sure, I'm like, hey, you guys know, like, get inside here shortly, because it's not going to be like,
well, you can hear the wind kicking up. You kind of know there's something going on.
But not everyone followed those
you're right about
instructions. That. I mean, I know somebody that decided to hunker down, and then when that happened, when the initial hit came, they're like, oh, this is more serious than I thought. And then they tried to go flee to Georgia in the middle of that, and they totaled they flipped their car. There was
no way.
Out on 75. So
that's nuts.
So how much do you think you can attribute the fact there were no rescues to the, we evacuated zones A, B, and C in the city. Right. I don't remember any time where we've done all three zones. No. So do you think that might have contributed a bit? Because when people saw that, they said, I better really heed this warning.
Yeah, I think, and we've discussed this a lot at the PD, is there was a silver lining in those first two coming here, because people are like, wow, we just got hit pretty hard. I didn't expect that. I did not expect it on Debbie. I didn't expect it on Helene. And then now everybody nationwide is saying this is the storm of the century. That's what they're saying. So people in this area said, hey, if these two are that bad, I'm out of here for this one, which was great for us, because we were able to continuously, as these hurricanes build a better plan, get better messaging out. And the Sarasota County Emergency Operations Center did an amazing job. I mean, they fired up weeks ahead of time. They're starting to get their messaging. We fired up our Emergency Operations Center. Todd Kirkring, emergency managers, in there, and we're working 24/7. We're sleeping in there, and we consistently work together. The other thing that I saw on this that I was really impressed with is this was the best pre-staging I had ever seen in the 22-plus years that I've been here. This was the first time where as soon as that thing left, we had fire rescue. They had their plan through the Emergency Operations Center. We're working in partnership with their command center. We're over there doing our thing. I pull up to the 10th Street boat ramp is where they're at. They've got fire guys ready to go, essentially their SWAT team. Field and Wildlife has all their gear and all their toys that are like monster trucks that float on water. I mean, amazing buggies. And I'm looking overhead, and there's the Coast Guards flying overhead. And then we find out that some Miami search and rescue team is on the island. We don't even know how they got on St. Armand Circle. They flew in on something, and they're starting already to find work. They're doing their thing. They're not even communicating with Sarasota County. I mean, so everybody's showing up doing their thing. And then we are able to leverage our drones, because we've invested a lot in drones, and then we use that for fire rescue. So now they're in their command center, and they're seeing real time over the circle and on the beach how bad it is, because we have our drone operators out there, and that's all being fed into the command center. So again, it's collaboration and partnership, and I think that's one of the reasons why we were able to do so well on this hurricane.
So we didn't have the issue where some of the local air agencies that would have helped out were already up in North Carolina. Because I know there was a lot of need up there, and a lot of folks from Florida actually went up there.
Yeah, they did. But I think we knew that other storm was coming, so I think they leveraged, hey, we're going to keep some people here. We're going to help out there. And we'd be remiss if we didn't say anything about Asheville, North Carolina.
Yeah.
I mean, that is the worst tragedy. There's still people missing.
90 people as of today that we're filming this.
It's terrible. They did not expect that hurricane to go that deep. It had never gone that deep ever. And those homes are not built like we have Florida homes. They're block, right? Over there, they're made out of wood that's aging and aging and aging, and they've never been put through that. So their economy is going to be put back for years and years. Family members have lost family members, and that's truly heartbreaking as well. But no, we didn't see a drop in assistance.
And that's another area that's really heavy on tourism. So this is kind of their peak season. The leaves changing. It's going to be rough on the local business owners.
Very rough.
In addition to all the obvious people who are missing and people who lost everything.
I think it's also important to know that because it was the biggest hurricane that we've been hit with, right, a 100-year storm. We were prepared. I think the governor said we had the largest reserve of linemen that we've ever had, just waiting to get us back in back to normal. We had 300,000 households without power in Sarasota County, and as of this morning, I mean that number is just under 6,000.
Wow, that's incredible.
And just to add
fuel
to that,
trucks as well to add to the power.
And just to add to that, I don't think Florida Power and Light in partnership with Pike, I don't think they get enough credit, period, because I think we take power for granted, we take electricity for granted, and then we really miss it when it's not running our AC or keeping our refrigerators cold, right? Turning our lights at night. They don't get the credit that they deserve because those guys and girls are out there risking their lives on those power lines, and they're doing it with very little sleep, very little food, in order for just for us to get up and running. So shout out to FP&L, shout out to Pike Power, everybody, anybody. And a lot of those people come from out of state, middle of the country, western of the country, because they can release those people as they don't have anything going on. And so thank you to all those power line people because we wouldn't be talking right now if they didn't have the power up.
I mean, that's crazy, though, under 6,000 as of this morning, less than a week. You know, that's
yeah, I mean, I would think
incredible.
that's pretty good for a storm of this magnitude. But the narrative I've been hearing online, and you know how online is, people, it's very easy to be negative online because it's just everyone's a tough guy online, right? Everyone appreciates the linemen. Everybody is annoyed with FPL because they don't like the communication.
That's a great point.
Because they did not know when their power was going to go back on. As if FPL knew. You know, it's a storm, it's chaos. They don't know, what transformers need to be fixed, which ones don't, or whatever. How soon did Capo Pazzo have power?
It was 6 days. So we finally got it back last night at 7 o'clock. Couldn't be happier. I mean, we were out, when life gives you lemons, right? We set up a stand. We were making 12-inch pizzas for everyone.
They were good, too.
And thank you. And we were just, praying nonstop for it to come on. And then, you almost feel a little bit guilty because you know that there's other people without power. Maybe somebody else needs it more than we do. There was an entire mobile home community behind us. There was like 1,000 residents there that didn't have any power, and it was hot, man. Yeah. It was hot.
I'm glad you mentioned that because a lot of people just forget that we're all going through the same experience. Right. So I mean, everybody was just calling, hey, where's my power? Hey, where's my power? You're getting thousands and thousands of calls. And nobody's going to be happy, right? It's impossible to make everybody happy. There is a list of priorities that FPL has, hospitals up first and shelters and things like that. But I thought it was, even when they did come out with a list of estimates, which was we want to have 95%, 95% of all power, all units or households back with power by accounts is what they call by tomorrow, right? By Thursday, what's tomorrow, the 17th. 17th. Then even then people weren't happy, right? It's just like,
well, first it was Thursday.
I got a text from a family member in a family group chat that was like, "Can you believe this?" And I'm like, "Oh."
They're saying by that date. They're not saying on that day.
Before the storm hit, it was like
they did a great job.
Everyone was just scared for their lives essentially in their homes, and now they still have their lives and they have their homes, and they're like, "Where's the power?"
Memories are short.
That sentiment though is true that there's a lot, and I think. My opinion of where it would come from is like you've got these linemen out there ready to work on the power in whatever area it is, and then you got Jim whose house is in that area walking out to linemen saying, "Hey, you guys gonna get this power back on?" And like, "Yeah, we're just waiting for FPL to let us know it's good to go. Like we can move forward with this project." and it's interpreted as like, well, great, FPL's holding us up. Like, FPL, get it together because this guy's here ready to work on it. But it's like, can you imagine? You said how many linemen were sent down?
It's just a record number.
A record number of linemen. You imagine coordinating those efforts?
I know it's a huge number, and I think what people need to realize too is, first, before I forget, 2 words: home generator. Get one. Okay, invest in a home generator. Yes. I don't know why we don't get some type of tax break to have a home generator, because there's a time when people don't even have shutters, and now everyone has shutters because you have to. And so home generator, everyone should have it, because just assume you're going to be out of power for 7 to 10 days. A home generator, you're out of power for 30 seconds.
It should add that to the tax.
That's 8 seconds.
Listen, what government does matters. I mean, I think we forget that with all the politics and garbage, but what the government does matters.
100%.
And that's an example of one way they could do something.
They could. And the other thing is, if I've been down to Robarts when we have 300, 400, 500, 600 FP&L workers, it becomes a little city. It's a mini city with a mini operations center. They literally have a town mayor. I mean, they have beds and bunkhouses and showers, and they're feeding hundreds of people a day. I mean, they have the system down. And I went down there because I wanted to copy their system, and I wanted to steal everything I could to learn from it, so that when we had the big one, we could learn. And we've learned a ton from them. So I don't think people understand, and maybe FPL needs just to do a better job of some of their messaging, as you said, and maybe their public information people, I'm fortunate to have 2 of the best, but maybe they need a better job of putting that out behind the scenes. Here we're doing, this is what we're working on, because people are finding a place to plug in their phone. They're getting the social media. They're getting the little videos. Maybe FPL just needs to do a better job of doing that, because I can tell you they are working night and day.
Yeah,
they are.
I'm glad to hear that, because obviously in any relationship, the breakdown in communication is often what causes the most problems, right?
They'll make it up.
You know, and then people don't really understand, because it's a regulated monopoly, that they don't know who to go to complain. I would think you guys hear a lot of it, you know,
for sure,
which takes you away from what you're doing. So we need to all do better.
I think a good direction to take this point. You know, we kind of talked about the before. Even some of the during. Now we're getting to some of the after, and you know, it's easy to you know, move forward with things going back to normal, or trying to go back to as normal as can be, and kind of forget about the fact that there are still people struggling out there, or businesses or things like that. I don't know if anybody knows firsthand, but maybe, you know, to the listeners out there that you know, are wanting to lend a hand or give back, or looking for an opportunity. Do you guys know where the best place to turn right now is? Where is there any organizations that are partnering with people? Is there, you know, is the city doing anything with volunteers or anything like that?
Yeah, I think we talked earlier, Red Cross, right?
Yeah, and I believe Senator Joe Gruters is promoting the Hope Bus, where everybody can go and get some resources. So he had come down to Capo Pazzo when we were doing, you know, when we had the truck out, just to support us. So he's been a tremendous support for us, and just giving us those resources that everybody needs to get back on their feet.
It just reminded me, was DeSantis actually at the Waffle House on Clark? I saw the photo. Was he?
He was.
Man, did you get there?
No.
Oh, I would have loved to have some hash browns cooked by Ron DeSantis. Did you see that?
I did not, no.
But I mean, that is what it takes. Just like you're getting out there on the front lines and walking through, like, just to see him here, that was you know, awesome to see. Unless you see it, like you talked about before, you don't really understand it. And so, yeah, I mean, I guess what we could do is talk a little bit about what the messaging from the city is looking like right now. Give us kind of an inside look at how we're working to get back to some normalcy, like we've been talking about.
Yeah. Well, I think the message right now is be patient. One, this is the time to help each other out, help your neighbors, but understand that this isn't going to be just a weeks-long process. Like I said before, it's going to be a months-long process. And once we go back to normalcy, I mean, just driving over here, I saw the Main Street sign was like a block away, leaning up against the tree. No, it literally fell.
Okay.
And so be patient, understanding this is a time for community to come together, volunteer, whatever you need to do, support local, but then also think, what can we do for next time? How do we prepare ourselves? What I'm hearing from some property owners on St. Armand's is, you know, we might reconsider if we actually renovate this and go back into business. For others, I think it was actually John Horn that said this. He's like, it's just the cost of doing business. So there's a different sentiment out there, but just remain positive. There is such a thing as post-hurricane fatigue. I'm serious. This is a real thing, and like FEMA is putting out these hotlines that you can call and you can talk to people. So take care of your mental state. It's a lot. It's overwhelming. There's a sense of sadness but in those times, a sense of community, being patient, and just sticking out for each other.
Agreed. Well
yeah,
said.
and with respect to city employees, and I know for a fact that we're feeding 300 employees every day at the police department because we take over.
Lock yourselves in there, right?
We unfortunately had an issue with one of our food vendors, and we had to pivot on a heartbeat, and we set up a kitchen on our second floor garage.
Wow.
And we had a bunch of flat top grills. We went out and purchased at Sam's. We purchased freezers. We called companies to rent refrigerated trailers, freezer trucks. I mean, we had to go into max mode because we knew our responsibility not only to ensure people's safety was to make sure that all our employees, to include all our public work employees, all the employees that are going to be boots on the ground after the storm hits, to make sure they're fed, because if they're not fed and they're not getting the calories that they need, they can't do the job that's expected of them. Mm-hmm. So what we ask too is people to show grace, because those public works employees, all the city employees, a lot of them live in the city or in the county, and they too are impacted. So they too are suffering. And so to Commissioner Arroyo's point, you know, there is a mental health aspect for everybody, to include the city employees, where they've been going 24, 48, 72 hours straight with no break. They still haven't had a chance to go home and go take care of their own homes.
You mentioned, you breezed over it earlier when you said we were all sleeping there, but many people don't realize, I don't think, that you're literally sleeping there. Like, that's
literally. I mean, we have officers in the building that have to leave their families at home, hug them, kiss them, say, hey, I'm going to be at work for the next few days. We're going to lose communication at some point, and we're going to have to pray for each other. And that happens every time. So we do the best we can to mitigate any of those issues, to make sure that as soon as we can get out, we make sure we make contact with those families, because those officers and those city employees are losing their mind. If you guys had to leave your family, that's not a great feeling.
I don't know if I could.
We signed up for this.
I don't know if I would sign up for it.
We signed up for this, so we know what we have to do. And so when you see police officers out there, city employees, know that they're selfless and they're giving themselves up for the people of the city. Yep. And that's huge. And there's no dollar amount that can impact that. It doesn't matter what we pay them. They're just built this way. So if you see a cop out there or a city employee, thank them.
Well, it sounds like kind of what I'm hearing is that based on this, based on the you know, tragic events that happened, the silver lining is really, you know, we were more prepared because we had two of them come prior to this one. This was a 100-year storm, and we've learned a lot from it. You had to pivot with things like food vendors and stuff. Now you have a backup plan. So we're just getting better and improving as a city and a really a neighborhood, a large neighborhood is what I look at our city and county as. When we have something like this happen, it's like, oh, now everyone's your neighbor, right? Now everyone is like helping each other and all of these things. So, you know, it is nice to see that there is some silver lining, but I feel like, you know, if there is a way that Sarasota SpeaX can be of help to the community in any sort of way, we would love to hear about it. So I'm not sure how we can help, what we can do, but if there's anybody out there that, you know, sees this and you know, we can help contribute, we would love to kind of put some of that stuff together. So Felipe, I'll pass to you.
I also think, you know, what we try to do on this podcast a lot, and you've been on before, you know this, is we try to get people information that, A, they won't hear anywhere else, or isn't really discussed elsewhere, as frankly as we tend to discuss things. So that's where I think we add value, and we try to make it a win-win-win. Win for us, win for our guests, and win for the viewers. So kind of going back to what he was saying, I would think that pretty soon we're not going to be using the term 100-year storm or 200-year storm anymore. Those things are antiquated because the last 100 years haven't been as what we thought, right? So we're getting more and more of these violent storms. And then also the way I think of a disaster like this is almost like the way we talk about a recession versus a depression in economics, right? A recession is when somebody you know loses their job. A depression is when you lose your job. So I think the issue that we're going to have to deal with in this community right now is there are some people who they lost their home, they lost everything. You know, that is a whole different story than, you know, my parents having to redo screens on one eye.
Right.
You know, so in that vein, can you elaborate on what we're doing with FEMA for those people who were most vulnerable and did lose everything or close to it?
Yeah, so we're getting the messaging out with respect to FEMA. They're at the Municipal Auditorium, and so the value you bring for us, and we talk about value, is allowing us to get these messages out, right? So we have them over at the Municipal Auditorium. We're making sure that we're messaging that as much as we can. We just partnered with the NAACP over at Osprey and Dr. Martin Luther King, where the NAACP was able to give out 400 hot meals with a food truck, and we tried to match that as best we could with 300 meals of our own that we brought in that we had, but we knew that it was important that the community had them. So we brought that in with our refrigerated trucks. So about 700 plus meals were able to assist the people in Newtown who were without power, that had damage within their homes. And I went out there, and let me tell you, you want to talk about a feel-good moment in your life when you can help people and they're so happy to see you and they're hugging you. I mean, so you know that people were hurting really bad. So that's amazing. So I think another message that we really need to get out is grace, right? Because government can't do everything. So we have to all pitch in, and we have to pitch in. And when I say that, I mean help your neighbor with food, help your neighbor clean their lawn, and vice versa. Help clean up your neighborhoods, because public works are doing the best that they can, and they really are. But they have to do it very safely and cautiously. Yeah. So sometimes it takes a little bit. But if you have debris in your lawn and you know there's no down power line, clean up your yard, right? Don't expect public works to come out there and do it. Let's take some responsibility, right? Some civic responsibility, and let's start taking care of business and taking ownership in our own neighborhoods. And we are starting to see that. And that's the one thing that makes the state of Florida so great. We're one of the greatest states in the country because we take care of our neighbors and we show grace for each other. So I'm honored to be the chief of police of the city of Sarasota. And quite frankly, I'm honored to live in the state of Florida.
I would think that's even more important with such an older population, right? I mean, some folks, they cannot physically do what you just described. So, you know, you look after your neighbors. And I think there's a lot of that going on, which is nice to see.
It's refreshing.
I didn't want to interrupt you. Sorry.
No, I mean, I'm from New York. I've only been down here about 3.5 years. And I have to tell you, I am blown away by this community. I absolutely love it. I would never be anywhere else. I'm a, Floridian for life. And the way people come together here is just, it blows me away. It's really, it's humbling.
Well, I think a lot of people are here by choice. As somebody who came from New York also, I didn't have to come here. I chose to be here. New York people, we tend to just end up there because, maybe our great-grandfather came over and, we just never left. Right. It's a different kind of thing when you intentionally build your community.
Exactly.
But I think moving forward, I think we need to have a conversation as a community as to how we want to build, how we want to prepare for the next one. You talked about lining the interior like a tub. Right. That's a great idea. Some people have talked about requiring everything in the barrier islands to be like 2 stories at least. But it's something that we have to pivot and kind of address and include some government officials. Maybe right now there's a state of emergency, and there's expedited permitting or even waived permitting in some instances to help people recover. So how do we facilitate that next time something like this happens? We know these things happen. We know it's going to continue to happen. Yeah. And maybe it could be finding a funding source, using some, let's say fines that people get for whatever.
Parking tickets.
Let's say parking tickets. You know this. You've gotten, you text me every single time. You got a parking ticket on a weekly basis.
I'm in the 4 figures at this point,
so
for sure.
Have you tried just not parking where it's
legally parking? I try my best,
parking. So, but I think finding a funding source where we can help, have a fund that helps people during emergencies. Yeah. Whether it's with insurance, because these high deductibles.
Well, even the generator thing is a genius idea. Tax credit for the generator.
Starlink. Elon Musk was giving everybody free a month of Starlink. Like they'll send it to you, and you get a free month. Just you can have power, and then of course you have to join the subscription.
Let's talk about the internet, because I'll tell you what. I had out power for a while, and losing connectivity because there wasn't internet or cell service was worse than not having power. And a lot of people felt like that.
Yeah, you had no way to connect yourself to
correct.
The
You
world.
didn't. You don't know what's going on because a lot of us are streaming. We're streaming TV. We can't talk to anybody. We can't talk to other loved ones. People are trying to reach us.
You just need a wind-up radio.
Well, if you had a home generator, you wouldn't have had that issue because when you have a home generator, your home essentially becomes a command center. Everything is still live. Everything is still running.
Cell phone towers.
What's that?
How about you talking about the cell phone towers?
Even with the cell phone towers,
you can have internet though.
You can still have internet, and you can talk through the internet. Right. So you're still having that level of communication. So
those things are expensive.
They can be very expensive.
I think some folks in some neighborhoods were still not in the city. We're still out internet because of the storm, because of Frontier or whatever the wireline provider is. So it was difficult. I know for a lot of people texted me and said, I had no internet. What's going on? Do you have any updates?
They're texting you
afterwards. You know what I mean?
Texting's another great form of communication because it continues to hit off the repeaters. So at some point it's going to go through. True. So there's going to be no perfect answer to this, and it's just like investing, right? What do you tell your clients? Diversify.
Yeah,
right. Never put your people in one area and in one type of stock, and you got to have diversification in case it goes bad here. Then you have it over here, right? So we talk about electricity all the times, and we talk about electric cars, but you can't go all in on electric cars. You got to have some gas cars because you might not have electricity. But you know what? I can go get 20 gallons of gas. I can store it in my garage, and I can still start my car. So it's about diversification. So it's about, hey, if you have a home generator, that's awesome. You can do a lot of things with that. But if you don't have diversification, then you got problems.
My friends who had solar did very well too because a lot of them had the power banks, and there's an insane tax credit on that.
That's great.
You can
the Tesla.
No, not even the Tesla one. That doesn't really exist. That's another discussion.
Coal.
No, but just you can get a solar. You can get the panels obviously, and then you can get a solar generator. It's really just
damaged.
It's a really big
power bank. Yeah,
that's all it is.
But the solar panels will get damaged in the hurricane.
I mean, they can, just like anything else. But they can also not. They can also not. Diversification. The natural gas ones are great. My parents' neighbor has one of those, so we piggyback.
I may know someone who has one.
Yeah, and I think you have a great medium here to get ideas. I mean, I would ask your listeners, like, what would you like to see at the city level, right? Would you like, a week or 2 weeks of no taxes on generators leading up to hurricane season? Would you like to see some requirement on the building code, on anything government can do? Grant programs. I know I've been talking to FEMA, and they have, 2 preliminary ones. One is like $750 that you get. The other one is $1,250, and they're not mutually exclusive too, so you can qualify for both. But I'm curious as to what people want to do, so we can compile a list, send it to the state, send it to the governor and senators, and I think
in a time that they're paying attention to it.
Yeah, events like this yield some positive changes.
Or like the 203H rebuilding loan. A lot of people don't know what that is.
I have no idea what that is.
Well, we'll talk about it. The 203K is generally a construction loan program through the FHA. There's one that's special for disaster victims called the 203H. Not very well known, but there are people around here who do it. So I highly recommend that people who are victims to storm damage and are rebuilding, look at all those options. There's stuff out there. I mean, there's even programs right now where they will come and tarp your roof until you can get your insurance and your roofer for free. For free. That's what I hear.
What do they call it, the Blue Tarp program?
Something like that. Yeah. But yeah, I just got some info for it because I know our roofing friends like Trey and Strong Roofing are really busy right now taking care of their customers. So it's difficult for them to get crews out to everyone. So there's programs like that out there.
Yeah, there needs to be more of them for sure, but especially
I think people need to know about them. That's usually the big problem.
Because then you get scammers too. So that's where the consternation comes in.
That's where the diversification comes in.
I mean, I think that's a big issue.
As our law enforcement at the table, you want to talk to us on how you're dealing with that and maybe educate the viewers a little bit?
I mean, the old saying, if it's too good to be true, it probably is, right? And we have another saying in law enforcement, which is trust but verify. Right? So if you're getting a source of information and it's coming from over here in lane A, well, that's great news. Why don't you go over here into source B and source C, and if you still find that information, then you can affirm that that's true. And those are things that are taught in the CIA. Those are things it's not hard to do. You have to trust but verify your information. And if anybody listening thinks there's something too good to be true, call us.
What's so despicable about that is they're preying on these people when they're in 100%. This state where they're probably not thinking as clearly as they usually would.
Correct.
You know, they've got other worries.
They're on their way now.
Did you guys? Did you have any issues with looting at all?
So I'm glad you brought that up. So we made it very clear from the start that we weren't going to tolerate looting, and that we did have a shelter open 24/7 for looters, and that was called the Sarasota County Jail.
Yeah.
And we can shelter people there any day of the week that we want. It costs us nothing, and they'll get 3 square meals. And so once that message was put out, we had 0 looting.
Wow.
And I talked with my partner at Longbow Key, Chief Turner, and there were rumors, so I had to call him up. I'm like, hey, man, did you have looting? He's like, no, we didn't have any looting. Wow. Now, I think what people were getting mixed up were scavengers, people that come to your curb and take away your stuff that you have just laid at your curb. Well, once you put it at your curb, you have technically abandoned it. It's not a crime to take it. You should appreciate those people coming, because those people are helping actually the city in a way, because they're removing your items and getting them out of there faster, right? So they're like a supplement to the city. But as far as looting, we had 0 looting.
Some people put their stuff out to dry it out for the insurance company to take a look at it.
Yeah,
right?
don't put it too close to the curb.
Keep it in your yard.
Yeah.
Probably.
I also saw some interesting signs regarding the looting. You loot, I shoot.
Yeah,
you know,
I didn't,
all sorts of stuff. Not that I'm advocating that.
I didn't see that in the city, but
Why wouldn't you advocate that?
Well,
If someone's looting,
I'm not recommending either one of those options.
You know, if you wanted a very nice stay at Club Fed or get arrested, just come. You know, the city of Sarasota is just not the place to commit crimes. I mean, we these individuals. I mean, your team at the police department, everybody. I mean, they're catching criminals right away. I mean, within hours. I mean, the longest I think I've seen is like 24 hours. But you get caught, and you get the marshals, you get the largest standing army that we have chasing after you, and they won't stop until you go to jail. So it's you know, they have a saying, you know, it's like if you want to really, if you want to find a killer, or if you want to find somebody who commits a crime, like do it in Sarasota, because I mean, that this is we have the best of the best.
I agree,
and they will find you.
I agree.
And we have amazing technology. We'll put it that way.
Well, listen, guys, I know that you guys have a lot of stuff to get back to as well. We so appreciate your time. I know we could talk about this for quite a while, and story after story, but, you know, I think the bottom line is that, you know, we made it, and it's going to make us better overall. And we're on the road to, you know, normalcy, like we talked about quite a bit. So we really appreciate you guys coming here for the special episode, and we appreciate all the hard work you've done. And for Melissa, you know, if you guys are hungry, they got power back on. I know you're hungry, so go check out Capo Pazzo, and you can order the pizza of the month, or you guys maybe haven't had this one yet, but you got to get the chicken bacon Brad. That one is really good.
Brad,
the chicken bacon.
Sounds disgusting.
It's a Sarasota Speak special. And with that,
so cool.
We'll sign off.
So what was the pizza of the month again?
For all your roofing needs, it better be strong.
Whether it's residential or commercial, it better be strong. From leak repairs to full roof replacements, it better be strong.
Use code ABC7 to receive a free solar attic fan with any full roof replacement.